Have you ever forgiven someone over and over, hoping they would change, only to watch them hurt you the same way again and again? You gave your heart, your trust, your loyalty, and still, they proved you wrong. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when forgiveness stops being a gift and starts becoming a lesson. About them, yes, but most importantly, about you. This is the moment you realize your worth, your peace, and your power, and why sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. Forgiving someone 1,000 times doesn't make you weak. It shows the depth of your loyalty and the size of your heart. Most people misunderstand forgiveness. They think it's something you do because you're scared of losing someone, because you're dependent, or because you don't have the strength to walk away. But the truth is very different. Forgiveness takes emotional courage. It takes a level of compassion and resilience that not everyone has. It's easy to cut people off. It's easy to walk away at the first sign of disappointment. But when you choose to stay, when you choose to give someone another chance despite the hurt, it means you see the good in them even when they can't see it themselves. It means you're built differently, with a heart that refuses to become cold even after being hurt. People with big hearts forgive not because they are blind to pain, but because they believe in growth. They believe people can learn, can evolve, can become better versions of themselves. They don't hold on to grudges, because grudges only poison one holding them. They forgive because they know every relationship comes with disappointment, misunderstandings, and mistakes. They forgive because they value the bond more than the momentary hurt. They forgive because they would want someone to forgive them if they ever slipped. That's humanity. That's emotional maturity. That's loyalty. But the world doesn't always reward a big heart. Sometimes the more you forgive, the more people begin to take you for granted. They start assuming your forgiveness is guaranteed, as if your kindness is a permanent supply they can use whenever they feel like it. They stop appreciating the weight of your forgiveness. They don't realize that every time you forgive, a part of you is choosing love over ego, peace over pride, and connection over conflict. They don't see the internal battle you fight between walking away and giving them one more chance. They don't understand that forgiveness costs you something. It takes emotional energy, it takes effort, it takes hope, but the depth of your loyalty isn't defined by how someone treats you. It's defined by how you choose to treat others even when you have the option to treat them badly. You forgive because you rise above pettiness. You forgive because you won't let someone else's behavior change your character. You forgive because you're built on values, not impulses. And this is something most people don't understand. Forgiveness is not a sign of weakness. It's a reflection of strength. Weak people hold grudges because grudges require no effort. Strong people forgive because they choose peace over chaos. Weak people react. Strong people understand. Your ability to forgive 1,000 times means you're the kind of person who gives everything in love. You invest with your heart. You don't play games. You don't keep score. You don't let ego dictate your decisions. You see potential in people even when they're lost. You extend grace because you've been through pain and you don't want to pass it forward. You know what hurt feels like, so you don't want to be the reason someone else feels it. You try to fix things instead of running away. You try to pour healing into places that are broken. You forgive because you want the connection to survive, not because you're scared to be alone. People with such hearts often get misunderstood. They get labeled as naive or overly emotional. But what people don't realize is that a loyal heart has walked through storms others could never survive. A loyal heart has been disappointed and still believes. A loyal heart has been betrayed and still chooses honesty. A loyal heart has been broken and still chooses to love. That isn't weakness, that is power, that is strength, that is emotional grit. Forgiving someone 1,000 times also reveals something about your capacity for empathy. You don't just look at what a person did wrong, you look at why they did it. You try to understand the pain behind their behavior, the trauma behind their reactions, the insecurities behind their mistakes. You don't judge them based on one moment, you see their whole journey, and because you see more deeply than others, you forgive more deeply than others. But no matter how many times you forgive, the truth remains the same. Forgiveness is a reflection of your character, not their behavior. It shows your softness, not your stupidity. It shows your strength, not your surrender. It shows your ability to rise above, not your inability to see the truth. People who love hard, forgive deeply, and stay loyal no matter what are rare. They are the type of people everyone wants in their life when things go wrong. They are the ones who make the world softer, kinder, and more bearable. Your forgiveness is not a weakness. It is proof that your heart is still alive, still open, still willing to try even after being hurt. It means you carry love, not bitterness. It means you carry hope, not hatred. It means you choose healing over hurting, and even if people don't always value that, it remains one of the strongest qualities a human being can possess. People who keep hurting you again and again after countless chances never lacked understanding, they lacked effort. It's easy to assume they didn't understand your pain, your boundaries, or your expectations, but the truth is that most people understand far more than they pretend. They know when their actions hurt you. They know when they cross a line. They know when they repeat patterns that break your trust. They've heard your words, they've seen your reactions, and they've felt the distance their behavior creates. Understanding was never the problem. The real issue is that they didn't care enough to try, to improve, or to change. People change when something matters to them. When they value a relationship, they fight for it. When they fear losing someone they truly love, they adjust, they grow. They put in the effort to make things right. But when someone keeps hurting you even after you've forgiven them more times than you should have, it's because they never feared losing you. They became too comfortable with your loyalty. They assumed you'd always stay. They believed no matter what they do, you'll keep giving them another chance. And when people become comfortable like that, they stop putting in the effort that relationships need. Effort is what separates people who care from people who don't. Understanding is easy. Effort takes discipline. Anyone can say, "I know I hurt you." But very few can follow that acknowledgement with action. People who continue to hurt you are choosing convenience over commitment. They're choosing comfort over growth. They're choosing temporary impulses over long-term loyalty. Understanding your pain doesn't cost them anything, but changing their behavior does, and that's where most people fail. They don't want to sacrifice their habits, their desires, or their ego to make space for your well-being. When someone truly wants to keep you in their life, they don't rely on your forgiveness to hold the relationship together. They rely on their effort. They do the hard work, controlling their reactions, communicating clearly, respecting your boundaries, showing consistency, and proving through action that they value you. When someone doesn't put in that effort, it's not because they didn't understand your expectations. It's because they weren't willing to meet them. They wanted the benefit of your loyalty without the responsibility of giving you security. They wanted the comfort of your presence without the commitment to treat you right. Sometimes people don't change because they know you'll clean up the mess. They know you'll forgive the apology, accept the excuse, and smooth over the damage. They know your heart is too soft to let go. They know you don't give up easily, and because you make it easy for them to stay the same, they choose not to grow. It's not that they can't do better. They simply don't feel the need to. Why would someone put in effort when they get acceptance without it? Why would someone change when the situation works in their favor? Their behavior isn't a result of confusion. It's a result of comfort. You can't teach effort. You can't force someone to care. You can explain your feelings 1,000 times. You can cry. You can walk away temporarily. You can set boundaries. You can open your heart. But none of it will matter if the other person is unwilling to put in the work. People often say, if they really understood how much they're hurting me, they'd stop. But the truth is they do understand. They just don't prioritize fixing it. They choose not to change because changing requires sacrifice, self-awareness, and accountability, and those things demand effort that they are not willing to give. It's easy to confuse a lack of effort with a lack of understanding because it allows you to hold on a little longer. It's comforting to think maybe they just don't know how much this affects me, but deep down you know they do. People know when they hurt you. They can see the disappointment on your face, hear the shift in your tone, feel the emotional distance, and sense the change in your energy. They know because you've told them, you've shown them, you've given them every chance to do better, but they still choose the path that requires the least from them. When someone keeps hurting you after countless chances, it's a reflection of their priorities, not their understanding. They understand enough to stay, but not enough to grow. They understand enough to benefit from your presence, but not enough to value your peace. They understand enough to enjoy the love you give, but not enough to give the same effort back. They understand enough to rely on your strength, but not enough to build their own. Their lack of effort is not your responsibility to fix. You can love deeply, forgive generously, and try wholeheartedly, but you can't build a relationship alone. Effort is a two-way street. It doesn't matter how pure your intentions are if theirs are lazy. It doesn't matter how much you give if they're not willing to give anything back. And once you recognize that their behavior is not a result of confusion but a lack of commitment, everything becomes clear. When you forgive someone again and again, you're not just healing a situation, you're teaching them something about how they can treat you. Every reaction, every second chance, every moment you swallow your pain and let things slide creates a pattern. Human beings learn through repetition, and relationships are no different. The more you tolerate, the more you accept, the more you bend, the more the other person begins to believe that your boundaries are flexible, your heart is unbreakable, and your patience is infinite. What you forgive once becomes a mistake. What you forgive 1,000 times becomes a habit, and habits don't change unless something forces them to. When someone hurts you and you forgive them, it should be a reset, a fresh start, a moment where both people learn something valuable, but that only happens when the person you forgive actually cares about doing better. When they don't, your forgiveness becomes a quiet permission slip. It becomes a message that says, you can do this again, and I'll still be here. Even if that's not what you mean, that's how it gets interpreted. People often respond to what you allow, not what you feel. You may feel disappointed, hurt, or betrayed, but if your actions show acceptance, then your feelings get ignored. Every time you forgive without consequences, without boundaries, without real change, you teach the other person that your heart is willing to pay the price for their patterns. You teach them that your love is stronger than their accountability. You teach them that your fear of losing them is bigger than their fear of losing you. This creates an imbalance where one person keeps giving and the other keeps taking. Not because they're evil or intentionally cruel, but because that's the dynamic you've silently established through repeated forgiveness. Most people don't change when things are comfortable. They only change when they are forced to face consequences. If someone knows that no matter how many times they lie, disappoint, disrespect, or break your trust, you'll eventually take them back, then why would they adjust their behavior? People rise to the level of expectations placed on them. If your expectations include endless forgiveness, they will never feel the urgency to evolve. Your softness becomes their safety net, your heart becomes their cushion, your loyalty becomes their excuse. You may think you're forgiving because you love them, because you believe in them, because you want to hold on to the relationship, and that may be true, but they're learning a different lesson. They're learning that your forgiveness is predictable. They're learning that causing you pain doesn't create distance. It creates another opportunity for them to repeat the cycle. They're learning that your heart can be hurt without consequences. And when people learn something is consequence-free, they repeat it without guilt. It's not that you want to teach them these lessons, but actions speak louder than intentions. When your actions show you're willing to tolerate being hurt, you unintentionally teach them that hurting you isn't a deal breaker. You teach them that your boundaries are words, not walls. You teach them that your breaking point can be pushed endlessly. You teach them that you're the kind of person who will stay no matter how many storms they bring into your life. And once someone believes you'll stay through anything, they stop putting effort into giving you reasons to stay. Forgiveness should be a bridge that reconnects two people, not a door someone walks through to hurt you again. When the bridge gets used repeatedly without repair, it weakens, the relationship weakens, your trust weakens, but the person who keeps hurting you doesn't feel that weakness because you keep holding everything together with your effort. They don't feel the cost of their actions because you absorb the damage, and when one person carries all the emotional weight, the other one never learns responsibility. When you forgive too easily, the other person learns that you don't value yourself enough to insist on better treatment. They learn you fear conflict more than you fear being disrespected. They learn that keeping the peace is more important to you than protecting your own heart. And the painful truth is that people treat you according to the standard you set. If you set a standard where your pain is negotiable, your respect becomes negotiable too. Forgiveness is beautiful when it leads to growth, healing, understanding, and mutual effort. But forgiveness without change teaches the wrong lesson. It teaches that nothing needs to be fixed. It teaches that words are enough even without action. It teaches that apologies are more powerful than patterns, and soon, the person hurting you becomes more comfortable with apologizing than improving. You may not realize it, but you're teaching someone how to treat you every single day through what you tolerate, through what you accept, through what you excuse, and through what you walk away from. And if you keep forgiving the same behavior over and over again, you're not showing love. You're showing someone how easy it is to break you. Forgiveness should be rare and meaningful, not repetitive and expected. It should be something that inspires them to do better, not something that enables them to stay the same. The moment you start forgiving someone more than they're willing to change, you're no longer teaching forgiveness. You're teaching permission. Self-respect begins where repeated forgiveness ends. Because there comes a point in life where your heart realizes something your mind has been ignoring for too long. You can love someone deeply. You can care for them with everything inside you. You can make excuses for their behavior. And you can keep giving chances, hoping things will finally change. But the moment you start losing yourself in the process, the moment your peace feels smaller, your worth feels lighter, and your boundaries feel invisible, something inside you wakes up. That awakening is self-respect, and it usually arrives the day you finally get tired of choosing someone who never chooses you with the same effort. Forgiving someone once is compassion. Forgiving someone twice is understanding. Forgiving someone repeatedly becomes a habit of self-neglect. It becomes a cycle where you tell yourself they didn't mean it, they're going through something, they'll do better next time, but next time keeps repeating, and every repeat takes a small piece of you with it. You start shrinking your needs, your voice, and your feelings just to hold onto a connection that isn't giving anything back. You become the one fixing problems you didn't cause, holding together a bond you didn't break, and fighting for a relationship alone. That's when self-respect starts whispering in the background, asking you how much more you're willing to take before you remember your own value. People often confuse forgiveness with love, thinking the more you forgive, the more loyal you are, but real loyalty includes loyalty to yourself. Real love includes love directed inward. If you give someone unlimited forgiveness, they start believing your limits don't exist. They stop noticing your pain because you've taught them it doesn't matter. They begin to see your boundaries as suggestions rather than non-negotiables, and as long as you forgive everything, they never fear losing anything. Your heart becomes a place where they can break things without responsibility because they know you'll clean the pieces before they even apologize. But when forgiveness becomes a cycle of being disrespected, taken for granted, or emotionally drained, it's no longer kindness, it's self-abandonment, and somewhere inside you, the part of you that remembers who you were before all this starts rising. Self-respect doesn't come from ego, pride, or anger. It comes from exhaustion. Kind of exhaustion that teaches you the difference between patience and self-destruction. It's the moment you look in the mirror and realize you've been loving someone else more than you've been loving yourself. Self-respect appears when you stop begging for the bare minimum, when you stop explaining why you deserve honesty, consistency, loyalty, and basic care, when you stop letting someone treat your heart like it's replaceable. It arrives when you say, "I'm not angry. I'm simply done." That done is not filled with hatred, revenge, or bitterness. It's filled with clarity. You finally understand that the person who keeps hurting you is not confused. They are comfortable, and the only way to break their comfort is by respecting yourself enough to walk away from what keeps breaking you. Forgiveness has limits because your soul has limits. Even the strongest heart gets tired of proving its love to someone who isn't trying. Even the kindest person gets tired of being an option. Even the most patient soul gets tired of waiting for change that never comes. And When that tiredness becomes heavy enough, it transforms into self-respect. Suddenly, staying feels harder than leaving. Suddenly, peace feels more valuable than attachment. Suddenly, you stop wanting the relationship and start wanting yourself back. Self-respect is realizing you deserve the same love you give. It's realizing that being loyal to the wrong person is still a form of betrayal of yourself. It's realizing that forgiveness is meaningful only when both people grow from it, not when one grows tired and the other grows careless. It's realizing that you can love someone and still choose distance, you can forgive them and still move on, you can care deeply and still walk away. That is not weakness, that is strength. Walking away is often mislabeled as giving up, but sometimes walking away is choosing yourself after losing yourself for too long. It's saying, my heart matters too, my peace matters too, my well-being matters too. Self-respect begins when you start treating yourself with the same compassion you gave others, the same patience you offered them, the same forgiveness you extended every time they broke your trust. It begins the moment you understand that someone else's inability to value you is not a reflection of your worth but a reflection of their character. And once self-respect takes root, something beautiful happens. You stop accepting apologies without changed behavior. You stop falling for words that aren't supported by actions. You stop chasing people who walk away easily. You stop prioritizing someone who makes you feel like a backup plan. You begin to choose your own peace over someone else's chaos. You begin to choose healing over hurting. You begin to choose yourself, not out of ego, but out of necessity. Self-respect is where repeated forgiveness ends, because you finally understand that the relationship you are trying to save should not cost you the relationship you have with yourself. Sometimes in life, you don't outgrow people. You outgrow the pain you once allowed. At first, this idea feels strange because we're taught to believe that when someone no longer fits in our life, it's because we've changed, we've matured, or we've risen beyond who we used to be. But the truth is deeper. Most of the time, the person didn't change. Their behavior didn't suddenly become worse. Their flaws didn't become bigger. What changed was your relationship with your own pain. You stopped accepting what once felt normal. You stopped tolerating what you once excused. You stopped shrinking yourself to fit into a space that was never built for your peace. You didn't outgrow them. You outgrew the suffering you used to tolerate just to keep them close. There was a time when you carried hurt like it was your responsibility. You handled emotional wounds quietly, thinking patience was the key to saving everything. You justified their behavior because you wanted to understand them. You stayed calm when you should have spoken. You forgave when you should have confronted. You allowed excuses to replace accountability, thinking it was love. It wasn't love. It was fear. Fear of losing them. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear that maybe, just maybe, you would never find better. So you accepted the pain because you convinced yourself it was part of the relationship, part of their personality, part of life. But slowly, something inside you changed. It wasn't sudden. It was a quiet transformation. You didn't wake up one morning and decide you were done. Instead, piece by piece, you became someone who no longer reacted to the same emotional triggers. You started noticing how much peace meant to you. You started realizing how much energy you were giving away. You started feeling how heavy it was to carry someone else's emotional chaos. The pain that once felt familiar started feeling unnecessary. The drama that once felt normal started feeling exhausting. The behavior you once tolerated started feeling disrespectful. You didn't outgrow the person. You outgrew the version of yourself that accepted their pain as part of love. Growth doesn't always make you louder. Sometimes it makes you quieter. You stop arguing because you realize arguing changes nothing. You stop chasing because you realize your absence speaks louder than your efforts. You stop overthinking because you finally understand that someone who wants to hurt you will do it no matter how carefully you walk. Growth is when you no longer fight for the same things you once begged for. You stop trying to fix what keeps breaking you. You stop romanticizing potential and start respecting reality. And the reality is simple. Anyone who makes you lose yourself is too expensive to keep. The version of you that stayed in the pain was trying. That version believed in loyalty, love, and second chances. That version was hopeful, patient, and forgiving. There is nothing wrong with that version. It was a chapter, a lesson, a stepping stone. But that version was also exhausted, drained, and silent in the face of disrespect. Pain taught you something that love alone couldn't. It taught you boundaries, it taught you self-worth, it taught you the difference between holding on and holding yourself back. You didn't outgrow the person, you outgrew the parts of yourself that allowed them to hurt you, and that is where strength is born. Strength isn't loud or dramatic. Strength is the quiet decision to stop participating in what destroys your peace. Strength is recognizing the patterns you once overlooked. Strength is finally choosing yourself in moments where you used to choose them. Strength is saying, I deserve better. Even when your heart still loves, strength is walking away not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself. When you outgrow the pain, you start seeing people for who they are, not who you want them to be. You stop making excuses for behavior that drains your soul. You stop waiting for them to change. You stop believing your love can save someone who won't save themselves. The bond doesn't break because you stopped loving. It breaks because you stopped hurting. You stop returning to situations that require you to abandon your worth. You stop betraying yourself in the name of loyalty, and something beautiful happens. You reclaim your power. You reclaim your peace. You reclaim your identity. You reclaim the parts of you that you sacrificed to keep the relationship alive. You begin to feel lighter, not because they're gone, but because the burden of pain you once carried no longer belongs to you. Outgrowing pain is not losing someone, it's finding yourself again. The person might still be the same, but you're not, and that's enough to rewrite your boundaries, your expectations, and your choices. The moment you stop tolerating pain, you stop tolerating people who bring it. That's when your world shifts. That's when peace enters. That's when self-worth grows. That's when healing becomes part of who you are. You didn't outgrow them. You outgrew the suffering you once mistook for love. Here is the detailed 800-word explanation of Keynote 6. Exactly as you asked, no subheadings, no ending lines, no conclusion. There comes a moment in life when you finally understand that people's behavior has nothing to do with your worth, and everything to do with the wounds they refuse to heal. You can forgive someone 1,000 times. You can bend until your back aches. You can carry the weight of their mistakes just to keep the relationship from falling apart, and still, you will be the one blamed, doubted, or taken for granted. But when you reach the point where you stop asking, why are they doing this to me? And you begin asking, why am I allowing this? Everything inside you begins to shift. This shift is not loud. It doesn't come with anger. It comes with clarity, and clarity is the beginning of emotional freedom. You start to realize that every time you forgave them, they didn't see love, they saw leverage. They didn't see your softness as a gift, they saw it as an opening. They thought your forgiveness was a reset button they could hit every time they messed up. They didn't change because they never had to. You were the safety net, the soft landing, the unconditional acceptance they didn't have to earn. And when someone never has earned something, they eventually stop respecting it. That's when you understand the problem wasn't that you forgave too much. The problem was that they valued too little. This realization is painful because it forces you to look at the version of yourself you became for them. You remember nights you stayed awake replaying conversations in your head, wondering if you were too harsh, when in reality you were the one being hurt. You remember lowering your standards just to avoid conflict, shrinking yourself just to maintain peace, giving them chance after chance, hoping that one day they'd wake up and appreciate the heart you brought to the table, but they didn't, and the pain of that truth is what finally wakes you up. Not in anger, but in awareness. You begin to see their patterns clearly. You see how they apologize only when they fear losing you, how they promise change only to slip back into who they truly are. And instead of fighting for their potential, you start accepting their reality. When you reach that level of understanding, your energy changes. You stop chasing, you stop explaining, you stop rewriting yourself just to fit the version of you they prefer. You stop dressing your wounds in silence just to make them comfortable. You stop believing that love means endurance. You stop letting emotions override your self-respect. Slowly, you begin to reclaim the parts of you that you abandoned to keep them in your life. and as you take back your power. You realize something important. Leaving isn't the hardest part. Accepting that you deserved better is. But once that acceptance settles in your spirit, something beautiful begins to grow. You become emotionally stronger, not because you hardened your heart, but because you learned to protect it. You stop being impressed by empty words. You stop believing tears that come without changed behavior. You stop romanticizing potential. You stop giving unlimited access to someone who keeps proving they don't deserve front row seats to your life. You start setting boundaries not as walls, but as filters, and the moment you do that, you finally understand that your forgiveness was never the mistake. The mistake was giving forgiveness in a place where accountability didn't exist. The mistake was expecting loyalty from someone who didn't respect themselves enough to respect you. You grow in ways they never expected. You become quieter but heavier with wisdom. You start choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, effort over excuses. You start seeing people for who they show you they are, not who you hoped they would become, and in that growth, something else shifts. You stop trying to save people from themselves. You stop trying to heal wounds you didn't cause. You stop trying to rewrite stories that were never yours to edit. You begin to understand that some people need consequences, not comfort. Some people learn only when they lose access to what they mistreated. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step back and let them feel the absence of the love they took for granted. This part of the journey is quiet but transformative. You start enjoying your own company. You start valuing your own time. You realize your heart isn't weak, it's rare. Your kindness isn't foolish, it's sacred. Your forgiveness wasn't a flaw. It was a reflection of your spirit. And slowly, you start attracting people who respect what you bring, not exploit it. People who match your effort, not drain it. People who see your value without needing you to prove it. Because when you finally heal from the one who kept proving you wrong, you stop settling for the kind of love that requires you to betray yourself just to keep it alive. In the end, life is not about how many times you forgive someone who keeps proving you wrong, but about how many times you choose yourself. Your heart is a treasure, and your peace is priceless. Learning to recognize when enough is enough, setting boundaries, and protecting your energy is not selfish. It is necessary. Forgiveness has its place, but self-respect and self-love must always come first. Walking away from someone who repeatedly hurts you is not failure. It is the strongest statement you can make about your worth. It is a declaration that you will no longer compromise your happiness for someone else's mistakes, and that your life deserves the kind of love that uplifts, nourishes, and honors you every single day. Remember, your journey is yours alone. Cherish the lessons, embrace the growth, and carry your strength proudly. Good luck on your journey of self-discovery, healing, and empowerment. Thank you for taking the time to listen, reflect, and honor your own worth. Keep your heart open, your boundaries firm, and never forget that you deserve the very best. When a good woman's love is lost, it is not simply heartbreak. It is a life lesson, a consequence of choices, and a rare experience that cannot be duplicated. A good woman does not offer love lightly or without effort. She invests in ways that go far beyond superficial gestures. Her commitment, loyalty, and patience are not casual. They are profound, measured, and often invisible until her absence reveals the depth of what was once present. She gives not just her time or affection, but a piece of her soul, her energy, and her vision for the future. Her love is rare because it is intentional, selfless, and enduring, yet it is also tied to respect and mutual recognition. When it is taken for granted, dismissed, or broken, the consequences are not only emotional but karmic, teaching lessons that echo long after she is gone. A good woman does not leave because she does not care. She leaves because she has cared too much for too long without reciprocation. She stays when others would walk away, fights when others give up, and sacrifices when others refuse. She navigates challenges with empathy and patience, always seeking solutions rather than conflicts. She forgives mistakes not because she is weak, but because she sees growth in people and believes in second chances. She listens attentively, supports relentlessly, and loves unconditionally, expecting nothing but respect and recognition in return. Depth of her love is extraordinary, and it is only when it is absent that the magnitude of her presence becomes fully understood. People around her may not notice the effort she invests daily, but her absence leaves a silence that echoes louder than any words could. When she departs, the man who failed to recognize her value begins to experience the full weight of her absence. Every moment he previously took for granted now becomes a painful reminder. Her laughter, her advice, her unwavering support, her encouragement, all the small and large ways she shaped his life, vanish. He experiences what it feels like to navigate life without the foundation she quietly provided. Opportunities that were once easier, relationships that were simpler, and challenges that were more manageable now feel heavier because the balance she contributed is missing. This is when he begins to realize that her love was not replaceable, that her presence was a unique energy that cannot be duplicated or fabricated, and that the void she leaves is as much a reflection of her rarity as it is a consequence of his neglect. Her departure also serves as a mirror, reflecting back to him the patterns of behavior that caused the loss. He begins to see where he failed, times when he ignored her needs, when he dismissed her emotions, when he failed to prioritize her in moments that mattered. He confronts the reality that love is not simply about presence, but about honoring, valuing, and reciprocating it. He realizes that the very person who poured herself into him, who believed in his potential, and who supported him through every hardship, was taken for granted. This realization hits harder than any argument or conflict because it comes with clarity and permanence. She is gone, and with her absence comes the undeniable truth of what was lost. Meanwhile, the woman who walks away begins a journey of transformation and empowerment. Her departure is not merely an act of leaving, but an intentional reclamation of self-respect, identity, and peace. She steps away from a situation that undervalued her, creating space to heal and to grow. Freed from the emotional burden of trying to make someone see her worth, she reconnects with herself. She begins to rebuild, not from the scraps of what was lost, but from the strength and integrity she carried all along. The lessons she takes with her are profound. She learns the importance of boundaries, the necessity of mutual respect, and the value of prioritizing her own well-being. Her elevation becomes a natural consequence of choosing herself over a relationship that no longer honored her, and her life begins to reflect the strength, clarity, and wisdom she embodies. The lesson is not just personal, it is universal. Losing a good woman teaches men about respect, patience, and the consequences of neglecting the love that was freely given. Her love is a measure of character. Those who fail to recognize it are forced to confront their own shortcomings. The universe ensures that her absence is felt deeply, using the silence she leaves as a tool for awareness. The pain, regret, and longing that follow are not accidental. They are the natural outcome of ignoring a rare gift. This process is transformative, reshaping his understanding of relationships, value, and connection. He learns that love is not just an emotion, but a responsibility, and that the care, loyalty, and patience of a good woman are treasures that cannot be replaced or replicated. At the same time, the woman who walks away thrives. She experiences the freedom to explore her potential, to heal, and to establish boundaries that honor her worth. She steps into her power, no longer tethered to someone who failed to recognize her value. Her departure is a declaration of self-respect, a statement that she will not settle for less than she deserves, and affirmation that her love is not for taking but for mutual growth. Every choice she makes, every opportunity she seizes, and every boundary she sets reinforces the lesson that she is rare, intentional, and invaluable. Her life becomes a testament to the power of knowing her worth and refusing to settle for anything less. Ultimately, when a good woman walks away, the experience is far more than heartbreak for the man. It is an education, a wake-up call, and a cosmic reminder of the value of genuine love. It is also the beginning of something greater for her, a journey of self-realization, empowerment, and elevation. The consequences are clear. He is left to face the void he created, and she is free to embrace the life she was always meant to live. Her departure transforms both lives, teaching lessons that cannot be ignored, replacing neglect with awareness and sorrow with growth, showing the profound truth that the love of a good woman is a gift, and losing it carries consequences that echo through life. When a good woman walks away, her silence becomes a teacher, a force that communicates more than words ever could, and it carries lessons that are unavoidable for the man who let her go. She does not leave in anger or malice. She leaves with quiet dignity, having exhausted every effort to be seen, heard, and valued. Her departure is deliberate, a culmination of patience, loyalty, and love that has been repeatedly ignored or taken for granted. In the moments leading up to her leaving, she may still smile, still speak kindly, still offer guidance, still give explanations, but inside she has already begun to detach. The man who failed to honor her cannot always see this inner process because it is subtle, but when she finally steps away, the absence carries the weight of all that was ignored, all that was dismissed, and all that was unappreciated. The silence she leaves behind is not empty, it is full of meaning, full of lessons, and full of truths that cannot be escaped. Her silence begins as a gap in the conversations, in the laughter, in the warmth that once filled the space she occupied. He notices it, perhaps unconsciously at first, in the way the house feels quieter, in the way his words no longer receive the response they once did, and in the way the moments that used to be shared are now void of energy. Her absence does not shout. It resonates, it carries a power that he cannot argue with, cannot fix with excuses, and cannot undo with last-minute gestures. Every place she once held space for him now echoes with the realization that she is gone, and every moment that used to be effortless now demands effort that she will no longer provide. The universe, in its impartial wisdom, aligns itself with her choice, creating a reality in which her departure becomes a lesson that can neither be avoided nor ignored. He begins to feel the consequences of his actions or inactions. Slowly, almost painfully, as the silence grows louder, he realizes that she was not just a presence, she was a force that held together the fragile balance in his life. She managed the tension, the misunderstandings, the stresses, and the emotional weight that would have otherwise pulled them apart. He may have assumed that her love was endless, her patience infinite, and her forgiveness automatic, but the moment she steps away, he encounters the truth. Her energy, her care, and her loyalty were not inexhaustible. The lessons embedded in her departure are subtle at first, but become undeniable as he experiences life without the anchor she once provided. Every missed word, every lost moment, and every opportunity to honor her now reflects the cost of his neglect. Her silence teaches him about accountability, not through confrontation but through absence. He realizes that love is not just about being present physically, but about being attentive, considerate, and engaged emotionally. He begins to understand that her efforts were never ordinary. They were extraordinary acts of patience, understanding, and unconditional care. He recalls the times she forgave him when he should have apologized, the moments she waited for him to recognize her worth, and the nights she comforted him when she herself was exhausted. In her departure, all of these efforts become starkly visible, not because she points them out, but because they are no longer there. Her silence amplifies the reality that he failed to recognize what he had until it was gone. At the same time, her departure acts as a catalyst for his self-reflection. He begins to confront the patterns of behavior that led to her leaving. He sees clearly the disregard, the indifference, the dismissals, and the arrogance that pushed her away. He experiences the emptiness that comes from taking for granted someone who gave her all. The silence she leaves behind is unyielding in its honesty. It forces him to recognize the magnitude of his mistakes without excuses or diversions. Every attempt to distract himself or to fill the void with superficial interactions fails because the absence of her presence, care, and understanding cannot be replaced. In this way, the universe ensures that the lesson is absorbed fully, as her departure leaves a mark that cannot be ignored, erased, or undone. Meanwhile, her own life begins to shift in ways that reflect her elevation. Freed from the weight of trying to repair a connection that was unappreciated, she begins to rediscover herself. Her silence is not a void for her. It is a space for growth, clarity, and self-respect. She begins to rebuild not in reaction to him, but in alignment with her own worth. Every boundary she establishes, every step she takes, and every choice she makes reinforces the lesson that her love was valuable and that she will not settle for less than she deserves. The energy that once nourished a relationship that no longer honored her now fuels her own progress, her own healing, and her own empowerment. Through her departure, the man experiences the consequences of neglect, while she experiences the benefits of self-recognition and strength. Her silence becomes the most powerful form of communication, revealing the truth of her value, the rarity of her loyalty, and the finality of her patience. He learns that love is not a right but a privilege, that patience is not inexhaustible, and that genuine care cannot be taken lightly. Her absence, quiet yet profound, teaches lessons that words could never convey and experiences that cannot be ignored. The silence she leaves is a mirror reflecting his actions, choices, and failures, compelling him to confront the reality that he allowed something irreplaceable to slip through his hands. And through it all, her life moves forward, enriched by clarity, self-respect, and empowerment, while he navigates the weight of what he lost. In the end, the story of a good woman walking away is not just about loss. It is about truth, awareness, and transformation. It is a reminder that love, loyalty, and patience are treasures that must be valued, nurtured, and honored. Her departure teaches lessons that no words could convey, showing the consequences of neglect and the power of self-respect. When she leaves, the universe restores balance, the man faces his choices, and she rises to her full potential. Her absence is a reflection of her worth, and her journey forward is a testament to strength, dignity, and clarity that comes from loving herself enough to walk away. It reminds us all that relationships are not just about being together. They are about growing together, respecting one another, and never taking love for granted. To everyone listening today, may you recognize the value of the people who truly care for you before it's too late. Cherish those who love you deeply, honor loyalty, and never underestimate the quiet power of respect and patience. And to those who have lost someone remarkable, remember that growth often comes through reflection and lessons through absence.